Every time the man drank 5 kilograms of tap water, he forced himself to do 300 push-ups. Even with his face flushed red and his breathing ragged, he refused to use the bathroom. Mike put himself through this torture for one reason only: to wait for the perfect chance to escape. Finally, that day arrived. That morning, breakfast in the prison was KFC of all things. Mike had his buddy load up a big plate of food for him, but he didn't wolf it down right away. He was waiting for someone important to show up. Right on cue, the warden walked in for his rounds. Seeing his moment, Mike launched into a violent coughing fit. The next second, he sprayed a mouthful of food all over the warden. The sudden mess made the warden gag, and he quickly ordered the guards to take Mike to the infirmary. After examining him, the doctor concluded it was just discomfort from drinking too much water. Nothing a day's rest wouldn't fix. Step 1 of the escape plan complete. Now for step 2. Mike said he needed to use the bathroom. The female doctor, worried something might happen, brought him a bedpan and told him to go right there. But Mike said that would be too embarrassing. That's when his accomplice, who'd been sweeping outside, spoke up and offered to help him walk over. The doctor reluctantly agreed, unaware that the two had planned this all along. Once inside the bathroom, Mike retrieved tools he'd hidden in the ceiling and got to work on a secret door leading outside. He got it open without much trouble, then put everything back the way it was and walked out like nothing had happened. But this was far from over. They hadn't actually left the prison yet. A few days earlier, the two of them had been working in the carpentry shop when the guards weren't paying attention. They'd secretly built 2 wooden crates and secured them to the underside of the supply truck that made runs outside the prison. All they had to do was climb in and lie still. When the guards checked under the truck with mirrors, they didn't notice anyone hiding inside and waved it through. Once the truck reached its destination, the two slipped out of their crates the moment the driver stepped away. Their getaway crew was already waiting nearby. Meanwhile, back at the prison, some inmates noticed Mike had been gone for a while. Figuring the time was right, they started a fight on purpose to create chaos and draw the guards in. During the brawl, they grabbed a guard as a hostage, keeping the warden's attention locked on the scene. He had no idea Mike was already gone. Mike's next stop was an F1 race, but they weren't there to watch cars go around a track. They were there to hit the vault. Mike hadn't wanted any part of this. He'd gone straight years ago. More importantly, he was only a few months away from getting out, and he had $90 million buried in his backyard. Why take the risk? But his partner dropped a bombshell. That money in the backyard? His brother had already dug it up and disappeared. With no other options and wanting something to live on after he got out, Mike reluctantly took the job. To help Mike break out, John deliberately crashed his car into a supermarket and stole 2 packs of instant noodles. That got him a 90-day sentence in the same prison. So far, so good. But after grabbing the money, they'd have to sneak back into prison, which meant time was running out. To figure out the vault's layout, 2 other crew members anonymously sent a cake to one of the employees, then sabotaged her car so she couldn't drive home and had to leave the cake at the office. Next, they disguised themselves as maintenance workers and snuck into the area beneath the vault, where they dumped a bunch of cockroaches they'd caught into the ventilation system. The roaches followed the smell and crawled straight to the cake. Left with no choice, the staff called in exterminators, and the crew slipped in with them, mapping out the vault and snagging the door code. They relayed the code to Mike through a payphone, giving him easy access to the basement. After all that, they circled back to the card reader base station and blew it up with a makeshift bomb hidden in a can. Now everyone placing bets at the track had to use cash instead of cards.
Are you down too?
Yeah.
They're all down here in the mezzanine. We got no plastic working at all.
Firefighters arrived quickly and dealt with the damage, but there was no way to fix it anytime soon. Until repairs were done, mountains of paper money kept flowing through the tubes into the vault. Before long, tens of millions in cash had piled up inside. Around that time, Mike arrived at the racetrack, but he didn't head straight in. Instead, he walked over to a concession stand and bought a beer. His partner watched, confused. What good was a beer going to do? But then Mike bought 2 packs of gummy candy. With his supplies in hand, John led him to a garbage chute. Mike hesitated, not understanding why they were there. Before he could react, John shoved him in. Turns out, the chute led straight to the basement. The race had already started up above, and every spectator was glued to the action. No one noticed someone was about to hit the vault. Thanks to their earlier recon, they quickly reached the spot below the vault. John's brother was already waiting with a bottle of correction fluid and a plastic bag for Mike. The brothers exchanged puzzled looks. Were these random items really going to crack open the vault door? As they watched in confusion, Mike tossed the gummy candy and correction fluid into the plastic bag and twisted it tight.
Give me the tube.
Hold on, that's it.
We're supposed to believe that that's the thing?
Even though he had no idea what Mike was doing, John handed over the pipe they'd prepared. Paul finally couldn't hold back and asked, could mixing this weird stuff together actually blow open the vault's pipes? He'd never heard of gummy candy being used to make explosives. Mike tried to explain, but Paul couldn't follow a word of it, and the two started arguing.
We couldn't bring in normal explosives because of the security. Now, to make our bang, we need potassium chlorate. Bleach pens is pure sodium hypochlorite.
Sugar plus potassium chlorate yields 2 gases and solid. Now you throw in some heat, you get energy. Energy means light, explosion, or as I like to call it.
Despite their doubts, they had no choice but to go along with Mike's plan. He stuffed the plastic bag into a bottle and placed it in the cash transport tube. The temperature inside was extremely high. They expected an explosion right away, but nothing happened. Then suddenly, the bottle shot back out and nearly hit John. He caught it just in time, but froze. This thing could blow at any second. Mike carefully took it from him. As he moved to unscrew the cap, the brothers scrambled for cover. The reason it hadn't exploded? The bag had been twisted too tight. Mike adjusted the bag, put it back in the bottle, and sent it into the tube again. This time, the heat did its job. The bottle exploded, blasting the pipe open. Soon, smoke drifted into the restaurant area. The staff assumed there was a fire somewhere and called the control room, but no alarms had been triggered. Still, they decided to send someone to check, just to be safe. Meanwhile, the crew fired up a high-powered vacuum and started sucking cash out of the pipes. Bills flooded into the garbage bin in seconds. When the flow of money slowed, they cranked up the suction, but went too hard and missed a grab, scattering bills all over the floor. They had to reverse the vacuum to suck them back up. That's when things went sideways. John's prosthetic arm got sucked into the pipe and jammed it. Arguing wasn't going to help. The priority was fixing the vacuum. John had worn that prosthetic for nearly 50 years. It was like his own arm, and he wanted it back no matter what. To keep the plan on track, Paul promised to buy him a solid gold replacement. John finally agreed. They loaded the cash into garbage bags and headed out. As they rounded a corner, they ran into a security guard on patrol. Without missing a beat, they said they were just taking out the trash. The guard asked if they'd smelled smoke. They said they'd lost their sense of smell as kids and hadn't noticed a thing. Somehow, the guard bought that ridiculous excuse and let them pass. They dodged a bullet. But just as they reached the exit, another problem. The door malfunctioned and wouldn't open. On the other side, Mike was still counting the remaining cash when two guards started heading his way. If they spotted him, it was game over. Luckily, the crew had planned for this. One of them was hiding in the pit garage, smoking a cigarette, which caught the guards' attention and sent them in his direction. Now no one would connect the earlier smoke to an explosion. All the remaining cash was packed and ready, but the two guys supposed to haul it out were nowhere to be seen. Mike grew more anxious by the second and finally went to check on them himself. Every wasted moment increased the danger. The race could end at any time, and staff would soon come down to inspect the vault. The guy smoking nearby was about to leave when he spotted Mike rushing off. He had no choice but to keep chatting up the guards to buy more time. When Mike caught up to the others, he found them standing frozen, completely stuck. Even with him there, nothing changed. No matter how hard they tried to work the door mechanism, it wouldn't budge, and Mike couldn't think of a quick fix. On the other end, Paul couldn't wait any longer and hurried toward the entrance. Bad luck struck. He ran right into the two guards. When they questioned him, Paul thought fast and said he'd only smelled car exhaust, not smoke. That excuse saved him, and he slipped away to rejoin the team. After all that hassle, they finally discovered the problem: a jammed chain. Once the transport crew got moving again, the others rushed back to the vault. John was still searching for his prosthetic arm, but time was so tight that even Paul's sister had to pitch in. Eventually, Paul found it for his brother. After stuffing the cash into the garbage bins, he wiped the chemical formula Mike had written on the wall clean and reconnected the pipes they'd torn apart. Then he went over every surface they might have touched, wiping each spot more than a dozen times to make sure no fingerprints were left behind. As for the bins of cash they'd taken out, they wouldn't move them right away. Instead, they marked everything and buried it all with the garbage. Once the race ended, they'd come back and dig it up. The remaining challenge was getting Mike back into prison unnoticed, but they'd already worked that out. It just required some help from the inside. First, the inmates covered the security cameras with ketchup, one by one. Then they used meal trays and aluminum foil to block the windows, keeping the warden from seeing what was happening inside. As the race broadcast neared its end, Mike's return operation officially kicked off. One prisoner removed a metal pin from a guard's uniform, wrapped it in tissue, and stuck it into an outlet to create a spark. He used the flame to trigger the fire alarm in the cafeteria. The warden was furious, but to keep the inmates safe, he called in the prison fire crew. Mike and John, disguised as firefighters, were already in position. When the fire truck rolled out, they climbed aboard and rode it right back into the prison under the cover of the emergency. Once the others went in to put out the fire, they slipped off the truck and made their way quietly back to the infirmary. The firefighters arrived at the scene only to find it was all a stunt pulled by the inmates. Still, they kept their cool and gave a garbage can a token spray with the extinguisher. When the female doctor checked the ward, Mike was lying peacefully in bed. No one could have imagined that in just a few hours, he'd pulled off one of the biggest heists ever. By the time investigators arrived, there wasn't a single clue. Tens of millions had vanished into thin air. But there was still one witness, a race car driver with a grudge against John. He and a colleague had bumped into the two fleeing through an underground tunnel and gotten beaten up. Once the agent got wind of this, he immediately contacted the warden. But the warden knew that if word got out about what had happened inside the prison, his job was toast. So he lied to the agent, insisting Mike had been in his cell the whole time and couldn't possibly have escaped. The agent couldn't verify either story and the case hit a dead end. Then something even stranger happened. After leaving, Paul parked the getaway car, loaded with the stolen cash, at a gas station and called the cops a few minutes later, leading them straight to $20 million. After that, he vanished without a trace. When the racetrack owner got his money back, he turned around and filed an insurance claim for $100 million. Not long after, John was finally released. Just when he thought he could take his share and live the good life, his sister hit him with bad news. Their brother had disappeared, and he'd returned the $20 million to the racetrack. Meanwhile, Mike wasn't having an easy time behind bars either. The warden still hadn't forgotten the food spraying incident and held a grudge. He humiliated Mike, beat him, and threw him in solitary. But Mike wasn't angry. He was actually happy because he'd be out soon. The moment he got out, he went looking for John. But John told him their brother was missing and the money had been returned to the racetrack owner. All that work for nothing. Mike swallowed his frustration and went home. He was sitting around, wondering what to do next, when someone knocked hard on his door. He opened it to find no one there, just a shovel lying in the hallway. He figured it was a prank and was about to head back inside when something clicked. He grabbed the shovel, ran to his backyard, and started digging without a second thought. Buried underground were several bags of cash, $5 million in all. Turns out, Paul had sabotaged that door on purpose to distract Mike and the others, giving his sister 10 minutes to slip back into the vault, grab another $20 million, and bury it as garbage. When the time was right, Paul dug it up and split it among the crew. Soon after, the inmate who'd caused the chaos inside was released too. The moment he stepped out, a luxury car was waiting for him, loaded with bags of cash. Even Mary, the vault employee, got a payout for her trouble. A year passed, and investigators never cracked the case. Eventually, the racetrack owner dropped the charges. In the end, the only real loser was the insurance company. Back at Paul's place, a piece of paper hung on the wall. It read, "The 10 rules of the master thief family." One of them said, "Never be greedy.